All right, let's dive in here, shall we? Let's talk about Michigan. What do we know about the Michigan Wolverines so far? Been undefeated. In a lot of ways, made a statement last week against Penn State. I think it is very fascinating at the bye week point for a lot of these teams to just kind of take inventory and figure out, okay, what are the absolutes? Teams evolve, teams change, teams develop, but what are the things that we for sure know about the Michigan Wolverines right now? I think there's a couple of things, and a lot of them, I think, quite frankly, bode well for the Michigan faithful. So Michigan fans, let's dive into it. The first thing that I feel like we know about Michigan is J.J. McCarthy, as talented as he is, as good as he is going to be, he doesn't need to be that right now for you. He doesn't need to be a finished product, meaning he can afford to kind of stick his pinky toe in the water and sort of wade out there, maybe get waist high. He doesn't need to be the man for you right now. And the reason why we say that is because your offensive line is elite. Absolutely elite. We talked about it. They played bully ball against Penn State, running for over 400 yards. And you know what that does for your quarterback when you run for over 400 yards? Takes a whole lot off his plate. And they're going to continue to run the ball effectively. Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, two guys that are just going to tote the rock, carry the mail for you. They're guys you can depend on. And so when you're running for that many yards, you don't need J.J. McCarthy to throw for 300. You don't need him to be perfect throwing 4 touchdowns through the air, because your running game is generating so much. Going back to what we said about the offensive line, they're also providing a ton of protection for him. You watch J.J. McCarthy on tape, a lot of his sacks are, frankly, him trying to ad-lib, get out of trouble, use his legs, trust himself too much. It's not like he doesn't have time sitting back there. We thought Penn State might heat him up a little bit. I didn't really see that. He had one bad interception, but that was off play action. It was a little bit fluky. J.J. McCarthy is a good quarterback. He's going to be a better quarterback as the year draws on. But we know within this team right now, you don't need that from him. He's going to have time to develop. And I think that cannot be overstated in terms of importance for Michigan going forward. When it comes to J.J. McCarthy, it feels like the run game is like his spotter if you're lifting weights. Like J.J. McCarthy is strong right now. If we're using this metaphor, he's going to be able to lift the offense on his own eventually, or the hope is he can lift more of the offense eventually. But right now, when he's pushing that bar up, the Michigan run game, the offensive line, they're spotting him pretty close and they're helping him lift it up. He's going to be strong enough eventually. Until he is, you got your spotter in the Michigan offense and that two-headed monster in the backfield for the Wolverines. You like metaphors? Let's stay with some metaphors here. Let's talk about the defense. So far, they've passed every test put in front of them. We thought Penn State might push them a little bit. Nope, wasn't the case. Allowed 10 points on defense. You say, no, the Penn State program scored 17 points. Well, one of those was a pick six, so we're not even factoring that in. As a whole, look at the numbers. 12 points allowed a game, 250 total yards allowed a game, less than 100 yards rushing given up per game. They are stout. And remember what they were saying about this team going into the year? Hey, new defensive coordinator, 8 new defensive starters. You lost 2 edge rushers on the defensive line. What's going to happen? Looks pretty good to me so far. Now, here's what I will say. The Michigan defense, to me, I think you kind of treat like a dating relationship, a new dating relationship. There's been some dates, right? There's been some low-stakes dates. You know, you've dated, against Maryland. You've dated against some of these lesser programs, Colorado State, Hawaii, and they've all been good. They've all passed with flying colors, no real red flags, right? Had your first serious date against Penn State. That was the first, hey, what's going on here? Is this going to be a thing? Are we actually worth our salt? It went well. Passed with flying colors in that game as well. So you're starting to develop some more trust, some more rapport. Here's the deal, though. You're starting to get some more high-stakes dates going forward, leading up to all the way the meet the parents date at Ohio State. So when it comes to this relationship, you're starting to trust. You're taking your time. It's been positive. You don't want to get ahead of things, but you don't need to get ahead of things. Why is the rush? You need to play Ohio State tomorrow. Take your time. Enjoy this. Trust as much as you've seen. And so far, we've seen a lot of good things. Don't need to go buy a ring. Don't need to go get you some jewelry. There's time for that. Take it slow. Once you play Ohio State, you can kind of have that definitive moment of, hey, what are we? Are we going somewhere, or is this kind of just going to be a fling? So far, though, consistent. Like I mentioned, the number's been very solid. Performance has been extremely positive, but it's one thing to do coffee dates. It's another to say, I want you, mom and dad. We'll leave it at that. So here's my overall thoughts when it comes to Michigan right now. The program has a very high and a very solid floor. In Vegas had them right around 9.5 wins. So maybe you're saying that doesn't mean a ton to me. You know, get to the point. Well, quite frankly, the floor could have bottomed out at this point. The floor in a lot of ways had every reason to break through. Look at what we got here. A new quarterback. That's pretty crucial, right? That doesn't always go super well. 8 new starters on defense, like we talked about. That's a whole lot of new. That's a whole lot of variables that if even 2 of those are rough, you might have some issues on the back end. You might have some issues on the defensive line. Like there's a lot of things that could spiral out of control pretty quickly if they don't mesh well to begin with. Oh, by the way, 2 new coordinators on offense and defense. There was a lot of opportunity for this thing to go wrong, and it hasn't. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. I'm not saying you can for sure just punch your ticket to the college football playoff, but I am saying at this point in the year, floor feels pretty solid. I don't think this thing is going to spiral out of control. And as a Michigan fan, you got to be really encouraged with everything that happened from a transition point from last year to this year. Hasn't been the college football playoff hangover. Hasn't been the our coach might take another job hangover. It's all been really clean. And I think that's got to be encouraging for Michigan fans. Because on the flip side of that, talking about the floor, where's the ceiling? Is there a ceiling for this team? Because I'm looking at all the potential for this program, and we're 7 games in. J.J. McCarthy's not even playing his best ball yet. Like we're talking about this team being undefeated, having a chance to go to the college football playoff, and how well they're playing. J.J. McCarthy, I think, still has a lot left in the tank. I think he would tell you that. I think a lot of people around Ann Arbor would tell you that. I feel like, quite frankly, people in that locker room would tell you that. It's his first few games as a starting quarterback. Remember, he wasn't even the guy until after game 3. So what if he ends up putting it together and being all that you hoped he would be? What if they get just a whole new element where they can push the ball downfield? They got the guys. Ronnie Bell, he can go. A lot of tight ends that have proven they can be guys that go deep for you as well, control the middle of the field. Like there's a lot under the hood here for Michigan that I don't know that we actually have seen just yet. Take it to the defensive side. 8 new starters. They're playing great ball right now. Do we think they're a finished product at 7 games? Do we think that they've already played their best football at 7 games? I have a hard time believing that. Typically, more experience means better gameplay. For Michigan, the opponents get tougher, yes. Will the numbers get worse? That's possible, but the numbers don't tell the whole story. The competition gets tougher. Like we talked about, the stakes for those dates get a little bit higher. But what if this Michigan defense has some of their best ball ahead of them? What if they continue to mesh? Something to think about. So we look at Michigan. JJ can take his time to get developed. He's going to be a guy going forward. Doesn't need to be a guy right now. Just needs to drive the car, don't crash the car. Defense, it's going well. It's been fairly casual in terms of your competition. You're ramping up to it, but so far, no red flags, passed every test with flying colors. The program has a really solid floor. I don't know that they have a ceiling. That's what I think we've learned so far for sure about Michigan in 2022. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.